Devil Venerable also wants to know. Chapter 1, Divine Book of Heaven. At the main hall of Xianyuan sect, Devil Venerable Wenren he had already been in secluded meditation for 7 days behind tightly closed doors. The food and the water sent daily by his subordinates were left untouched, and nobody knew what kind of profound cultivation enlightenment had he attained. Hall Master Yuan, who was in charge of the main hall, was in a dilemma. The Venerable Lord had gone in seclusion without leaving any instructions, and no one knew when he would emerge from it. If he had really attained enlightenment or ascended, should a celebration be prepared or not? Devil Venerable Wenren he was neither extravagant nor wasteful. He didn't like formalities much either. However, if the Lord's skills really reached a new level, Hall Master Yuan should at least assemble everyone in the General Assembly Hall and congratulate him on his achievement, as well as discuss the future when the Xianyuan sect would dominate the whole cultivation world. Hall Master Yuan thought about it and finally decided to ask assistance from Yin Hanjiang, the left protector of Xianyuan sect. Yin Hanjiang was the Venerable Lord's closest confidant, and he had been in contact with the Lord before he went in seclusion. He should be the one who understand Wenren he's thought the most. Yin Hanjiang, who was dressed in black from head to toe with a face as cold as frost, had been guarding the meditation chamber for the past 7 days. He was a man of very few words. After listening to the difficulties of Hall Master Yuan, his indifferent face showed a slight puzzled expression and appeared a bit at a loss. Hall Master Yuan was not tall, so he needed to raise his head to look up at Yin Hanjiang's eyes, waiting for his advice. Yin Hanjiang moved the corners of his mouth and forced out a few words, "Not at this time." Ah! Hall Master Yuan was stunned. This one heard that 7 days ago, when the Venerable Lord received a secret book, he immediately went in seclusion. The Venerable Lord has not had a breakthrough for many years, and there are few cultivation methods that he hasn't seen yet. For him to enter seclusion, was it not for attaining a breakthrough? Like I said, not necessary, Yin Hanjiang said coldly as his long sword glinted with a keen light. Hall Master Yuan didn't dare to ask any more question and hurriedly retreated. After he left, Yin Hanjiang looked at the closed door behind him, and his frosty expression turned into one of confusion. 7 days ago, the Lord did get a book, which others nearby thought was a secret technique tome. Only Yin Hanjiang, who was near to Wenren he at that time, caught a glimpse of the title of the book, Abusive Love Affair, "You Are the Only One That Will Remain in My Heart." The title almost made Yin Hanjiang grit his teeth. Nothing in this title suggests that this book had anything to do with secret techniques. Even the erotic scripts written by secular scholars had a much more elegant title than this. At that time, Yin Hanjiang thought that Wenren he would immediately burn that rubbish to ash, but who would have imagined that upon opening it and glancing at the first page, he would let out a deep sigh and immediately secluded himself with the book. For such a mundane book, was it worth it for the Devil Venerable to pore over it for 7 days? The longer Yin Hanjiang stayed in front of the Lord's door, the more troubled he became. It should be noted that this was the cultivation realm, which was incomparable with the martial arts realm of Wulin and Jianghu. Wulin and Jianghu were places where a group of people who, through diligent practice and doing everything possible to strengthen their bodies, became slightly stronger than ordinary people. No matter how high their internal skills were, they were merely acquired. At best, they had the strength to kill a beast with one punch. On the other hand, the cultivation realm of Xiuzhen was one level higher than that of Wulin. The cultivators were separated from the world of mortals and ascended to the realm of immortals in various ways. Their skills were also beyond those acquired by the martial artists in Wulin, as they were innate power. People in Wulin could concern themselves with love and lust, as well as stories with heroes and beauties, but cultivators were those who broke away from the secular world, cut off familial and romantic bonds, and enlightened to their own version of the great Dao. In particular, the Xianyuan sect was a demonic sect. For those who practiced dual cultivation, male and female engaged in sexual activity with lust and not with love. The act was simply to absorb qi from one another without any sentiments at all. The devil Venerable Wenren he cultivate the path of slaughter. Apart from all ways to kill people, he had never shown particular interest with any woman or man. So how could he read abusive love affair, you are the only one that will remain in my heart for 7 days and 7 nights. He didn't understand. He couldn't understand it. But Yin Hanjiang was the left protector of the sect and Wenren he's most loyal subordinate. He once made an oath that he, Yin Hanjiang, would never let Wenren he suffer any harm as long as he was alive. Anyone who wanted to kill Wenren he would have to go through Yin Hanjiang first. So even if he knew that the Venerable One was reading some love story and not meditating in seclusion, Yin Hanjiang still held his sword as he stood guard before the doors of the cultivation chambers without taking a single step away. On the other side of the door, Wenren he put down the book with one hand hovering over the cover. For a moment it seemed as if he would disintegrate the book with one blow. His hand trembled slightly before he finally withdrew it, leaving the book intact. He frowned slightly, one fist propped against his forehead. It seemed that he was thinking about an extremely difficult thing. 7 days ago, Wenren he had been discussing with Yin Hanjiang how they should teach those so-called righteous cultivators a lesson for always threatening the Xianyuan sect, when a thick volume suddenly appeared in his hand. Wenren he was one of the most powerful figures of the cultivation world. Unless an immortal had descended from the upper realms, no one in this world could place a book into his hand without him noticing it or detecting any sign of their presence. Alarmed due to what had happened, Wenren he did not destroy the book right away. He endured overlooking the title, opened the first page and saw a few lines of words. Due to excessive plot holes, this story has been rejected by its readers. Therefore, the character with the highest popularity among the readers has been selected to personally verify the story's consistency and make appropriate modifications. Because of this sentence, Wenren he immediately secluded himself, spending the next 7 days reading this novel of more than 1 million words from the beginning to the end, word by word, over and over again. Thanks to his strong powers of cognition, he had memorized it by the first read. There was no need for him to reread it again, but he still did so, several times, taking the time to consider the meaning of each and every sentence. After reading it so many times, he still couldn't understand it. He understood every word and every sentences. He could even visualize what was described when they were linked together. But in the end, he just didn't get it. The book told the story of love and resentment between a man and woman's entanglement across 2 lifetimes. In her previous life, the female lead was a primordial goddess in the heaven. Unlike a mortal who cultivated into godhood, she was born from the heaven and earth as a god. She was the goddess of calamities who was responsible for spreading diseases, disasters, and death across the mortal world. She sounded like an evil goddess, but the fact was, she was maintaining the balance of the universe. Life must lead to death, and death must lead to life. The cycle went on and was never ending. She was absolutely fair and impartial, never targeting any particular race or species and fulfilling her duties for countless years without joy nor sorrow. After several tens of thousands of years, most of the primordial gods had fallen and the divine realms was populated by many ascended gods. These gods were former members of humanity, chief among all living things. They were those who had awakened to the ways of the heavens, gathered the essence of heaven and earth inside their bodies and passed thousands of trials in order to gain the same level of powers as those of the primordial gods and ascend to the divine realm. The male lead was one of them. The male lead was someone who regarded all lives on earth as his responsibility. After he ascended to the divine realm, he learned that the female lead was one of the rare primordial gods who was in charge of unleashing disasters upon the mortal world. When he was still a mortal, he heard of many natural disasters that were caused by her. Thus, he began to constantly plead with her, trying to persuade her to change her ways. The primordial goddess was as emotionless as the universe. To her, the male lead was no different from the floating clouds in the sky or the stones on the ground. He was no different from a fly or an insect buzzing near her ear. All he could do was constantly bother her, so she would often use the silencing spell to seal his lips and toss him down from the 33 layers of heaven. However, the male lead persisted and crawled back every time. He would find a way to get rid of the silencing spell and went back to earnestly begged her to have sympathy for mortal lives. Millions of years passed like this until the goddess' predetermined trial came. Even the universe must undergo the three calamities of wind, water, and fire. It would be destroyed and recreated innumerable times. This applied to gods as well. The female lead accepted her fate and bravely faced the calamity. When the calamity occurred, the male lead came again. The tribulations that a primordial god had to go through far surpassed that of any normal god. The female lead knew she would certainly die. Only by preserving her godly soul, undergo reincarnation, and learned again the principles of the heavens would she have a chance of survival. Therefore, before the female lead started her tribulations, she left behind her divine powers and sealed it away somewhere in the human world so that in the future she could reclaim it, regain her powers and return to the divine realm. At the time of the tribulation, when the female lead was about to relinquish her body and enter the reincarnation cycle, the male lead arrived and blocked a lightning strike for her, effectively taking part of the tribulation on her instead, and the two of them ended up entering the reincarnation cycle together. Somehow, the male lead had created a karmic relation with her. After reincarnating, the naive and innocent female lead was inducted into a cultivation sect, and when she laid her eyes on the sect's head disciple for the first time, she was met with a sensation like her heart was being struck by lightning. A lightning strike was how Wenren he analyzed the book's passages. Of a tingling sensation spread through her body at that first sight, and she was unable to move her gaze away or take a single step. Wenren he had never experienced love and assumed that these symptoms could only be caused by lightning strikes. At first sight, the female lead fell in love with the male lead. The female lead, named Bailey Qing Miao in this life, had her heart stolen by He Wenzhao, the head disciple who, as before, cared wholeheartedly about mortal lives. This was the beginning of a masochistic story of the female lead being abused body and heart, yet never relinquishing her love and finally giving up her divinity for He Wenzhao, only wanting to live happily ever after with her beloved. To sum it up, the specific plots were as followed: false accusations and misunderstandings, Bailey Qing Miao being imprisoned, being mistreated, being poisoned, being hunted down, and He Wenzhao marrying someone else. Several important supporting male characters were wholeheartedly devoted to Bailey Qing Miao, protecting and cherishing her, but Bailey Qing Miao only loved He Wenzhao. She ignored everyone else's goodwill and insisted on following He Wenzhao. After being hurt by He Wenzhao, or by his wife or one of his lovers or a fellow disciple, another male character would save her, but after recovering she would run off to be abused again. This kind of plotline went on for over 800,000 words, and Wenren he nearly had a chi deviation from reading it all. If Bailey Qing Miao appeared in front of him right now, he would crack open her skull to see just how her brain worked. The last page had no more story but a bunch of strangely satisfying messages, labeled as book review section. The reviews were mostly along the lines of, "This MC is insane, giving up being a god to stay with an already married scumbag. Trash, underdeveloped, kept me waiting for over 1 million words for MC to reclaim her divinity and punish the scumbag, but she was a who until the end. He Wenzhao loves the MC, but the world is more important than her, the sect elders are more important than her, the common people are more important than her, everything else is more important than her. He Wenzhao can toss her aside whenever he wants. This love is far too humble, I can't handle it." He Wenzhao ruined MC's life twice. She was a primordial goddess, she saw things in a different way than an ascended god. Causing disasters was her duty, and it was also in order to balance the universe. He kept pressuring her to favor humanity and messed up her heavenly tribulation, making it so in her next life, she couldn't help but be bound to him. This guy is too terrifying, torturing the female lead for the sake of righteousness. Falling in love at first sight can be treated as the karma from their past life, But how come this karma is nothing to He Wenzhou? Yet it's Bailey Qing Miao who wants to die for him. He Wenzhou can marry the master of the Xiling Pavilion, so why can't Bailey Qing Miao marry Zhongli Qian or Wenren He? Is the heir to the #1 cultivation clan not good looking enough? Is the devil Venerable not badass enough? Why do you gotta hang yourself on He Wenzhou? Wenren He was the only one keeping me going for 1 million plus words. I wanted to see him tear the male lead a new one, but in the end the female lead still got him killed. Wenren He, Zhongli Qian, Yin Hanjiang, any of them are better than He Wenzhou. The MC is blind. That may be true, but let's forget about Yin Hanjiang, he's too scary. Cross out Yin Hanjiang, just seeing that name is gonna give me nightmares. Cross him out +1, let's just talk about Wenren He. These familiar names that kept appearing in the comments, like Wenren He, Yin Hanjiang and Zhongli Qian, were the reason that the devil Venerable endured reading through the book. Wenren He knew the one written in the book was he, himself. Just like the introduction of the book said, Wenren He was the abusive love affair, you are the only one that will remain in my heart's haughty but infatuated second love interest. The world he lived in was but a story in a book. A normal cultivator who learned such truth about the world would probably suffer a heavy psychological blow or either apathetically live out the rest of their days, or chi deviating and going mad. Even Wenren He was in a daze for a while, but he was a person who sought enlightenment in the midst of death and slaughter and thus, had an unshakable will. He quickly realized that the cultivation world was only one of the myriad worlds of the universe. In other people's eyes, his world was only a novel, but the novel abusive love affair, you are the only one that will remain in my heart, only recorded the love, hate, amity, and animosity of a few dozen people. The things not included within it were enough to make up an entire world. The book was only a record of the lives of certain people at certain times, not the world in itself. Wenren He knew that he certainly existed, his thoughts and actions weren't subjected to anyone else's control, and the world was real, so that was enough for him. The thing that Wenren He really couldn't figure out was that the book said he would, in the future, fall in love with Bailey Qing Miao, take on the world for her and give up his life for her. The cold and dispassionate Wenren He couldn't understand this. Just by reading the book, he wanted to yank Bailey Qing Miao's soul out of her body, make her forget her feelings for He Wenzhou, then shove it back in. How could he, for the sake of protecting her, risk his life to help He Wenzhou just because she asked him to? Wenren He knew that if he didn't get to the bottom of these things, the obsession might give rise to an inner demon that would obstruct his cultivation. He had to figure out these matters, not necessarily to fulfill the assignment he was given at the start of the book, but for his own peace of mind. After contemplating for 3 days, he made his decision. He would figure out why Bailey Qing Miao was such a shameless ahem. Why she was so hopelessly infatuated. He himself couldn't figure it out, and maybe Bailey Qing Miao was also muddle-headed. She'd been struck by lightning, after all, so maybe her brain wasn't working right. But the other people in the book, in particular Bailey Qing Miao's romantic rivals, probably knew what they were doing. After all, they also loved He Wenzhou and were willing to fight each other to the death for his sake. If one person wasn't enough, then he would just have to find more. If he asked enough people, he was certain to get an answer. When he figured out the problem, the difficulty of changing the plot would decrease. After he made his plans, Wenren He opened the doors, and Yin Hanjiang, standing guard just outside, saw his lord finally went out. He dropped to one knee and set his sword on the ground, quietly awaiting his lord's command. Wenren He looked at his left protector, whom he trusted above anyone else, and remembered that he was also in the novel. Protector Yin, when it comes to love. Actually, never mind. After he said only a few words, Wenren He remembered Yin Hanjiang's actions in the story that caused all the readers to be so creeped out, and decided against asking him. Yin Hanjiang probably didn't know anything about love either. End chapter. Devil Venerable also wants to know. Chapter 2, Temptress of Xianyuan Sect. Yin Hanjiang figured out what Wenren he was about to say, and that was he wanted to ask him about his thoughts on love. Honestly, Yin Hanjiang didn't understand either. As a child, he was picked up out of a mass grave by Wenren he and was taken back to Xianyuan sect. From the beginning, the Venerable Lord's command was his will, and he had never expressed his own opinions. Even though Wenren he hadn't finished the question, Yin Hanjiang bowed his head and said, "The Venerable One's beliefs are the subordinate's beliefs." If his Venerable One liked stories, Yin Hanjiang would collect all the stories on the realm for him. If he liked men or women, Yin Hanjiang would bring all the people he liked before him. His lord's wishes were Yin Hanjiang's command. Wenren he stared at Yin Hanjiang kneeling before him and recalled the novel that was filling his mind for the past few days. According to the plot of the book, Yin Hanjiang really did act according to his words. Yin Hanjiang was abusive love affair. You are the only one that will remain in my heart's fourth love interest, the trusted subordinate of the second love interest Wenren he. He was habitually silent and reserved. He faithfully protected Bailey Qingmiao and tended to her every need. When Wenren he couldn't watch over Bailey Qingmiao himself, he would send Yin Hanjiang to protect her. Yin Hanjiang took blows for her, got poisoned for her, got injured for her, and nearly lost his life, all without a word of complaint. He never even confessed to her. The most explicit words he'd ever expressed was when, while the two of them were facing an impending crisis, Bailey Qingmiao told him to escape first. He replied in a hoarse voice, "If I live, you live. But if I die, you will still live." Which girl could resist such a dedicated, handsome man who showed his love through his actions? In the earlier parts of the novel, Yin Hanjiang's popularity even exceeded Wenren he at some point. Even Bailey Qingmiao, who was still crazy for He Wenzhao, once told Yin Hanjiang in tears that she couldn't repay her debt to him even if she spent her whole life trying. All the readers, including Wenren he, thought that Yin Hanjiang was deeply in love with Bailey Qingmiao, but after Wenren he died for her, Yin Hanjiang. Wenren he recalled the plot he had reread 4 or 5 times. He asked Yin Hanjiang, "While this Venerable One is here, you certainly are wholeheartedly loyal. But what if, someday, this Venerable One is no longer here?" Hearing Wenren he's words, a shudder ran through Yin Hanjiang's body and the arm propping him up trembled slightly. It seemed that the mere thought of the possibility that Wenren he might die was too much for Yin Hanjiang to bear. He didn't want to even imagine it, but Wenren he was asking him the question, so he forced himself to consider it. In a few moments, a cold sweat had broken out on his forehead and it seemed as if he was at his limit. After a long while, he forced an answer out through gritted teeth. "This subordinate will die before his lord." Hearing it, Wenren he absently wiped away the sweat on Yin Hanjiang's forehead with a brush of his sleeve. His actions were warm but his words were harsh. "What if this Venerable One had unfinished business and didn't allow you to die?" Yin Hanjiang's pupils trembled, and he switched to kneeling with both knees, pressing both hands against the ground, lowering his head deeply. This subordinate doesn't know. He didn't know, but Wenren he did. In the book, Wenren he ordered Yin Hanjiang to protect Bailey Qingmiao before he died, thinking that Yin Hanjiang also liked Bailey Qingmiao and would certainly protect her as much as he, himself would. And Yin Hanjiang indeed carried out his order, never leaving Bailey Qingmiao's side. But at the same time, a man in a ghost mask inexplicably appeared in the story. He seemed to be inescapable, using every method he could think of to harm Bailey Qingmiao. After Bailey Qingmiao was injured, he sprinkled bone-melting powder on her wounds. After Bailey Qingmiao passed out, he threw her into the thousand-snake pit. When Bailey Qingmiao was alone, he hung up a cauldron and tried to refine her into an everlasting lamp. With each of his appearances, he became more and more depraved. The entire time, the readers had been trying to guess exactly which wicked female character was disguising herself as the ghost mask. Even though he was described as a man, in the cultivation world, there were many ways for a woman to pretend to be a man. but no one could have guessed what happened next when at one point, Bailey Qingmiao and Yin Hanjiang hid in a cave as they fled from the ghost mask. Bailey Qingmiao had said quietly, "Yin Xiang, I'm so lucky you're by my side." "Really?" Yin Hanjiang had asked. Bailey Qingmiao was exhausted and was about to doze off against his back when she saw that a corner of a bundle that Yin Hanjiang had been carrying the whole time had fallen open. What she glimpsed inside was the very same sight that had made her jerk awake from countless nightmares, the ghost mask. After Wenren he died, Yin Hanjiang finally did something against his orders. He wanted to kill Bailey Qingmiao to suffer all kind of torture and die. He wanted Bailey Qingmiao to be buried and made into an everlasting soul lamp which would burn night and day for Wenren he to illuminate his path in the afterlife. All the ways he had taken care of Bailey Qingmiao in the past weren't because he loved her but because this was what Wenren he had ordered him to do, and thus, he made Bailey Qingmiao's safety his priority. When he learned Wenren he died because of Bailey Qingmiao, Yin Hanjiang only wanted to hurt her in 1,000 different ways. While reading the book, Wenren he didn't understand Yin Hanjiang's motivations. Only after coming out and asking him did he realize how much pain Yin Hanjiang must have been in. His first point of confusion with the book was now solved. "You can get up, Wenren," he said. Yin Hanjiang got steadily to his feet after wiping his bottom lip with his sleeve. Wenren he caught his arm and smelled a tinge of blood on his sleeve. Forcing him to imagine the devil Venerable's death actually caused Yin Hanjiang this much pain. Even Wenren he who cultivated the path of slaughter, was a bit moved. At this moment, Wenren he hadn't fallen in love with Bailey Qingmiao like the him in the book, so he didn't think there was anything wrong with what Yin Hanjiang did. Among those who cultivated the demonic paths, who could be considered selfless? If one couldn't have something, destroy it. If one was about to die, take your enemy with you to the afterlife. This was all perfectly normal. Wenren he just wanted to tell the book's Yin Hanjiang, not bad. And while he's at it, he'd like to beat up the book's Wenren he. At least the female lead had something wrong with her head. What Wenren he couldn't accept was that he, himself had abandoned everything for the sake of love. That was totally impossible. Why would he fell too deep into her that he was unable to free himself? And why would Bailey Qingmiao be infatuated with He Wenzhou until she lost herself and was still wanting to be with him after being hurt so many times? Why would the jealous female villains frame an innocent girl because of He Wenzhou? There was too much that Wenren he didn't understand. Yin Hanjiang answered a question for him, but there were more questions waiting for the devil Venerable to understand. Wenren he rested a hand against Yin Hanjiang's chest and sent a stream of true qi into him to help him heal. Yin Hanjiang put up no resistance, allowing Wenren he's oppressive energy to freely enter his dantian and help suppress his spiritual qi, which was in turmoil from his unsteady mental state. After casually fixing up Yin Hanjiang, Wenren he commanded, "Tell the right protector to come to the meeting room." Yin Hanjiang obeyed, taking out one of the Venerable Lord's command talismans and sent the summons to the right protector. The two came to the meeting room and waited a while, until a woman in purple clothes arrived leisurely. What she was wearing could less be called clothes and more of a strip of purple gauze wound about her body, barely covering any vital areas and instead outlining her alluring figure, tempting the imaginations of onlookers. Unfortunately, the two in front of her were blind and had hearts of ice. The right protector, Xu Yanyan, had long gotten used to this kind of non-reaction from them. She made an enchanting gesture of greetings at Wenren he. As soon as she was allowed to rise, she impatiently asked, "My lord, do you need me to go attack up those two-faced hypocrites of the righteous sects? This subordinate has been itching to do it." She covered her mouth, while revealing a bashful smile. Wenren he understood well this subordinate of his. "Are you itching to punish them, or to harvest their yang energy to supplement your yin? Aren't those the same?" Xu Yanyan fluttered her eyelashes at Wenren he. "You know me, my lord. I follow the path of desire. I wouldn't miss the chance to kill two birds with one stone." Wenren he raised a hand. "Xu Yanyan, receiving his permission, walked to the seat on his right and sat down, languidly stretching out her long legs, with every one of her movements displaying irresistible feminine charm. Wenren he ignored the seduction she had inadvertently released and said unhurriedly, "Do you know the head disciple of Qing sect, He Wenzhao?" "Oh, him. Now that piques my interest." Xu Yanyan sprawled lazily across the chair, without a hint of proper posture. Propping her chin with one hand and batting her eyelashes as she said, "3 months ago, didn't you send us out to investigate the righteous sex plans? I disguised myself as a frail and pitiful songstress and pretended to be mistreated in a restaurant before some young disciples of Qing sect. He Wenzhao was the one who came to my aid. That man." Stopping there, Xu Yanyan licked her lips, as if savoring something tasty, and paused for a moment before continuing. His yang essence was quite satisfying. Wenren he knew exactly what she was thinking about. In the book, He Wenzhao's yang essence was indeed taken by Xu Yanyan, and he had lost a lot of his cultivation. Xu Yanyan locked him up in her residence and just about sucked him empty. In the end it was Bailey Qingmiao, as always, who risked her life to save him. Moreover, to help him replenish his qi essence, she went to the 1,000-mile ice plains to find the miraculous cure known as the snow flame. She then helped He Wenzhao absorb it, which increased his cultivation immensely. Xu Yanyan was essentially the #1 villain of the first part of the story. She wasn't in love with He Wenzhao but simply coveting his yang energy, a temptress in all aspects. And due to Xu Yanyan being a wicked person trying to harm He Wenzhao, Bailey Qingmiao, for the first time, forgave him for having a relationship with another woman. The temptress of Xianyuan sect practiced the art of seduction, and her power was far above that of He Wenzhao. If she wanted to do something, He Wenzhao had no way to resist. He was the victim here. What Bailey Qingmiao didn't know at the time was that there would be a second time and a third, and countless other times when He Wenzhao was being coerced and she was expected to understand. "Tell me more about the situation at that time," Wenren he said. Going by the book's word count, the current plot should only have progressed to about 70 or 80,000 words in, which was also the only happy portion of the book. After Bailey Qingmiao entered Qing sect and fell in love with He Wenzhao at first sight, the two of them cultivated for over 10 years and could be considered as childhood sweetheart that grew up together. He Wenzhao showed every consideration to his little Shimei. The two would often sneak out to pick flowers and watch the moon, or practice techniques with each other in the dead of night, never going further than propriety allowed. Their affections toward each other were as sweet as honey, enough to give one a toothache. During this period, there were also some female disciples from the same sect who stirred up trouble, but back then everyone was young and innocent and none of them did anything highly improper. He Wenzhao was also an upstanding young hero, the sect's beloved prodigy, and had yet to take on the sect's burden. The temptress Xu Yanyan was the first conflict between them. "Who could still remember that much?" said Xu Yanyan. "All I was thinking about was that man's yang energy. My lord, you know my cultivation level has remained stagnant for many years. If this keeps up much longer, I'm going to get wrinkles." While talking, she brought out a mirror and inspected her face, which looked no older than that of a 16-year-old girl's, and after finding it satisfactory, she continued, "He Wenzhao's yang energy is unusual. He has a lightning spiritual root, and there also seemed to be a deeper, mysterious power inside him. I'm certain that if I can take his essence, I'll be able to raise my cultivation." Among cultivators, there were 5 different kinds of common spiritual roots: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, and 5 kinds of variant spiritual roots: wind, lightning, ice, light, and earth. Ordinary people usually had a mix of 3, 4, or even 5 spiritual roots. People with dual element spiritual roots were already considered naturally gifted. A single common spiritual root was 1 in a million, while a single variant spiritual root was a heaven-blessed genius which might not come about even once in 10,000 years. Yet He Wenzhao possessed a pure lightning spiritual root. Did this lightning spiritual root come from the lightning of the heavenly tribulation he was struck by in his past life? Wenren, he muttered to himself, deep in thought. And that mysterious power was naturally his divine power. He Wenzhou was an ascended god in his past life and kept his acquired divinity with him during the reincarnation cycle. Bailey Qingmiao possessed a primordial divinity which was born together with heaven and earth. Unlike He Wenzhou's, it could not come with her into her mortal body. If Xu Yanyan stole He Wenzhou's essence, his divine power would certainly increase her cultivation significantly. Why didn't you take action against him 3 months ago? His level of strength can't stand up to yours, Wenren, he said. Ah, Xu Yanyan sighed, I wanted to take him, but the power in him is very unusual. If he isn't willing to be with me, I can't force him. He has a sweetheart, a little girl whose looks aren't inferior to mine. She's very sharp too, and was suspicious of me the whole time. She was keeping a close eye on her man, so I couldn't even find a chance. Oh. Wenren, he raised an eyebrow slightly. They have to be willing. The book hadn't mentioned that. It was written from Bailey Qingmiao's point of view, and when He Wenzhou told her that Xu Yanyan drugged and abducted him, Bailey Qingmiao believed it. Don't you know me at all, my lord? Xu Yanyan said, pouting. When it comes to these matters, I always pay attention to mutual consent. If a man performs particularly well and I like him, I'll pay him back a little while cultivating and help replenish his lost essence. Aside from my enemies, those sweethearts at my residence have all received benefits. Those that I grew tired of are not even willing to leave even when I try to shoo them away. I actually never knew that. It seems that this Venerable doesn't know about many things, Wenren, he thought. Nevertheless, I won't let He Wenzhou off lightly, Xu Yanyan said faithfully to Wenren. His Shangqing sect is leading the current attack on Xianyuan sect. How can I show mercy to the head disciple of an enemy sect? Don't worry, my lord, I've already had secret contact with He Wenzhou behind that little Bailey Qingmiao girl's back for several days, while pretending to be an innocent maiden. He pities me and kept sneaking out to bring me gifts. Sooner or later, I will get my hands on him. Wenren, he pondered things for a moment. No, it's not necessary, he said. What isn't necessary? Xu Yanyan asked, blinking her large, pretty eyes. It's not necessary to ruin him, Wenren, he said, tapping a finger on his armrest. Do what you're accustomed to. Draw it out for a while. He indeed has a unique power within him, which will be of benefit to you. No need to do anything extreme. Huh? Xu Yanyan stared in shock. Was this the same devil Venerable who would eradicate his enemy's root and branch and not show a shred of mercy? She furrowed her brows. He's the Shangqing sect's most favored head disciple, the pillar of the righteous sects. Should we not deal with him while he's young, and instead leave him to become a problem in the future? If I repay him while cultivating with him, his power will improve even more quickly. This might benefit me, but it wouldn't be of benefit to Xianyuan sect. As Xu Yanyan spoke, her expression became vicious, all signs of her gentle, charming manner gone. These words pleased Wenren he greatly. If you asked Wenren he, this was how a cultivator should be. The great Dao is emotionless. Rather than cling to passions, it's better for one to use them for their own benefit. And one must stand firm, lest in a moment of weakness they bring about their own demise. Seeing Xu Yanyan's awareness and Yin Hanjiang's ruthlessness, then remembering the hymn in the book being so blinded by love that he was willing to abandon the Xianyuan sect for Bailey Qingmiao, Wenren he felt deeply that he wasn't much better than his two sect protectors. A normal person would probably try to stay away from Bailey Qingmiao in the future, to avoid the possibility of being entrapped. However, Wenren he was someone who faced problems head-on. He was determined to meet Bailey Qingmiao and He Wenzhou, to harden his heart and not be moved by any emotion. With this thought in mind, he ordered, Xu Yanyan, we must think more on a long-term solution. You need to sabotage Qing sect. Xu Yanyan thought for a moment and clapped her hands, eyes lighting up. My lord, this subordinate understands your intention. What I must do is use the guise of a poor, honest woman to lure astray the future pillar of the righteous sex, break down his defenses and have him wrapped around my finger, letting him believe that I'm a good-hearted woman who went down a wicked path but deep inside still wishes for redemption. I should get him obsessed with me, captivated by my beauty, captivated by the power he can gain from me. And afterward, if one day I plead to him, save me, he'll happily divulge information regarding his sect that he doesn't see as very important. Even better if he can take the leadership of the sect in the future. I can slowly lead him onto the demonic path, until he finds himself in too deep and unable to turn back. Xu Yanyan got more and more enthusiastic as she spoke, wanting to immediately head out to play the damsel in distress. Playing the long game was the right way to go. Wenren he just wanted Bailey Qingmiao to clearly see that he Wenzhao was willingly getting together with Xu Yanyan, so he had Xu Yanyan seduce he Wenzhao. But as it turned out, Xu Yanyan thought more deeply than him, and elevated it from a matter of a relationship to being about the great sect war. His right protector actually was a woman with great ambitions. In the past, Wenren he hadn't even known. Your plan is feasible. But keep 2 points in mind. First, do not harm Bailey Qingmiao. Second, do not get entangled by love yourself, Wenren he said. My lord indeed has keen foresight. Leaving Bailey Qingmiao alone and letting her cause trouble will only push he Wenzhao closer to me, the good and obedient one. She's certainly more useful alive than dead, Xu Yanyan spoke as she nodded. As for he Wenzhao, there's no need for concern. Your subordinate is a seasoned veteran. She can see through all the two-faced men in the world. After saying this, Xu Yanyan turned and left the meeting room, leaving the two silent men with the image of her slim back. Protector Yin, Wenren he said after a long while. This venerable one is not much better than the right protector. He was referring to the hymn in the book. Yin Hanjiang said, My lord is the most far-seeing man in the world. The right protector is not worth 1,000th of him. Ah, you, Wenren he shook his head and changed the subject. Leave the mountain with me. I want to meet these juniors from Shangqing sect. He wanted to see. Now that Xu Yanyan wouldn't steal he Wenzhao's essence, then how would he Wenzhao going to explain himself to Bailey Qingmiao? Would she give him up or forgive him as she had in the book? The devil Venerable was quite curious. End chapter.